Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hot Plates and Grapes podcast. This is our 10th episode and the season finale. I have two really important guests with me today. One is the Cremant de Jura. We're going to drink this from Domaine Dussault, sparkling rosé. It's perfect right after Valentine's Day to share with somebody that you know really love and have an affection for. And my second guest that I have, who this wine kind of pairs perfectly with, is my own mother, Vanessa Collins. Yes, the person who gave birth to me. The reason why you're hearing my voice is right here in front of us now, live and direct. We're going to hear some stories that I probably never heard myself, so I'm excited to get down to it. So while I open this bottle, I'm going to give a disclaimer. My mother does not drink, but I do, so this is going to happen. This means a lot to me right now. It'll be the first time I'm able to drink in front of my mother and not get judged by it. This is great, and we can have a professional conversation. This is great. So, Mom, how's Virginia? How's Fredericksburg? How are they accepting the COVID? How are they moving forward? And how's being around James 24/7? James is my father, by the way.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, being around James every day was an adjustment last spring when I had to work from home every day. Of course, we see each other every day, but really being on lockdown together was quite interesting. He was super happy because if he could have it his way, he'd have us home together every day anyway. But I really enjoy getting out and going to work. Really. So
that's really nice.
Overall, it's been fine. Thank God we didn't have those issues that I've heard so many other couples having about, we didn't have any pre-existing issues, so they weren't exacerbated by COVID. I think we came to actually cherish each other even more because of the level of death and morbidity and just being grateful for life every day. I think it made us cherish one another more, really, and to value every day and not take things for granted. And I always want to say that we haven't taken each other for granted, of course, but it really made us examine life and appreciate it.
That's good.
Even more, really.
That's good. I'm glad it wasn't, the exact opposite.
Me too. Yeah. Definitely. School-wise, of course, we literally just started hybrid Plan B. So it was quite an adjustment. It was the new principal said it's the first time he's ever had the first day of school in February.
Wow.
So that was really, some kids had never seen the school. They've had to do virtual tours for the students because they had never seen it. We've had transfer students or sixth graders who had never seen the buildings because of COVID. It just wasn't permissible.
Wow, that's the favorite word of this year, unprecedented.
Oh, absolutely.
For children, because the first day of school for us was so important. What are you going to wear? The jitters, it's just a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of politics in the first day of school, but it's usually a warmer time and not the middle of or the middle of the winter. So it's just a lot of retraining, relearning kind of how to teach in this time.
Oh, definitely. The teachers have never used this technology before. They came in person recently because a lot of them have been home. I've been coming in person because of my low incident students. I've had to teach my autism students who can't learn virtually all along. So There were a limited amount, but for the most part, I've just been doing it virtually and in person, face to face, for a while now.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you're staying safe, and it didn't reach that far because New York definitely went through a lot, and a lot of people close to me were, especially in their family tree, were greatly affected by it. So I'm blessed that, my family tree wasn't greatly affected by it. It was definitely something to be thankful for. Everybody asking me, how's your family in Virginia? And I was always, great. They're doing fine. Well, Mom, so you're a fellow New Yorker, born and raised in Mount Vernon. Attended Mount Vernon High School, graduated in 1987. It's the same high school that Denzel Washington went to. And JB Smoove, right? Or is it? I always think it's JL Smoove, but I'm pretty sure it's JB Smoove.
No, it's JB Smoove.
Yeah, JB Smoove. Talent as well, but not too much of a household name in my generation.
Hey, talent. Oh, sweetheart, now let's not talk. Don't sleep on talent now.
What people don't know, my mom actually did a talent show with Albie Shore and said that he was a terrible singer, and he got voice lessons and became a one-hit wonder. Look at that.
He did. It was an audition. He was a senior. I was a junior. And we sang a duet of Tomorrow by the Winans. And he did not hit those falsetto notes. And right after he turned to me, he said, "If we don't make it, I think it's my fault," meaning his fault. And I was like, yeah. So Al definitely went and got voice lessons. Next thing you know, here he is with Barry White. He's tight with Quincy Jones, and he is doing it. So he definitely became a success story. And you know, he always wanted to sing, so he followed his dream, which is great.
Yeah.
But you know, that song, you know, it was just such a high note, and I'm naturally a soprano. He was singing falsetto, so that's just a larger range for a man. And he has a naturally deep speaking voice. So that was a big factor.
Okay, benefit of the doubt. All right, Albie, you can live. You live today.
No, definitely, yeah. He did a great job. In the garden? Yeah.
And after a you know, eventful high school career, attended Adelphi University in Garden City, New York, which is out on Long Island. Received a Bachelor of Arts degree in '92. Then later on in life, especially after giving birth to me and my brother, I was born in '94. Brother was born in '92. Still somehow found a way to attend James Madison University in Harrisonburg, Virginia, and got a Master's of Science degree in 2003. And she taught in the Manassas Public Schools, Manassas City Public Schools for 12 years, from 1994 to 2006. We moved down to Fredericksburg, Stafford area, and worked for the Stafford County Public Schools from 2006 till today. So my whole educational career, my mother was in the schools with me. Actually was a benefit. It's not actually a negative. So she's been working in the field for over 26 years, working with students who have speech-language impairments, autism, intellectual disabilities, specific learning disabilities, and other health impairments. And they're at the middle school and high school level, even though she started off in preschool. Kind of think that's like the way to go. And the certifications that Mom has received, she has her certificate in clinical competence from the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association, otherwise known as ASHA. And she has the BASLP license from the Virginia Board of Audiology and Speech-Language Pathology. So, Mom, being from Mount Vernon, New York, lovely place. I used to love going all the time. How did it all start? What did Grandma do? What did Grandpa do? Were they hospitality at all? Like, how'd you get into your career path?
No, they weren't. Daddy was actually an auto mechanic, and it's my understanding that he has served in both the U.S. Navy and U.S. Army. He had been in World War II. I heard about that. He had actually lied to get into the military, so he really didn't finish high school. He didn't have much schooling. He lied about his age, somehow got his mother to sign and let him in. And I think the first time they found out, that's why he had to go into a different branch later, I guess, when he became of age. And my mother, Mommy didn't work from what I know. I mean, my siblings will say that she worked before I was born. But as far as I know, she was a housewife, a homemaker. She never worked outside of the home when I was born. But I'm a late in life baby. I'm the surprise, because my siblings are 15, 14, 11, and 10 years older than me. So I was quite the surprise. So their experiences with my parents are way different from mine. So you can probably relate as being the baby to a certain degree.
Yeah, to a degree.
But yeah, I'm definitely
I know the benefits of being the youngest.
The other part of the question, no, neither of them were in hospitality in any way that I could think of. And really, this term you use as hospitality, I think, was mainly associated with hotels and not so much restaurants. I think we considered that just the restaurant business,
right?
You know, not so much that term. I'm not sure when that became like a nuanced term, or maybe I'm just ignorant to that. I think every child explores those service jobs initially, wanting to be a teacher. I used to, at one time, I wanted to be a florist because I kind of thought that was a cool job. but I didn't really want to do the funeral aspect, but I always thought it was nice for you to bring people flowers. Like that would be a cool thing.
Yeah.
And then I thought about the arrangements, but then I talked myself out of it because I can be indecisive and I would spend too much time rearranging, and I didn't think I would be really productive, but that's something I used to think about. Most kids want to be police officers or whatever, but yeah, teacher, I know that crossed my mind, the florist. I'm not thinking too much else, but when I was 16, my grandmother, who I was extremely close with, I spent every weekend with her from the time I was 11 till I was 16, pretty much. And she had a stroke my junior year.
Wow.
And she lost her speech. And she had a speech therapist come to the house and work with her. And it was like miraculously, she regained her speech. And I thought, oh my God, what a great job. This is just amazing. And at that time, I think they were making like $35 an hour. I thought, well, this is quite the job.
Yeah.
But prior to that, or almost concurrently with that experience, that same year, I had a really traumatic experience where my mother had attempted suicide and I found her. And that same day, I remember the ambulance waiting outside and my high school sweetheart pulling up because he was driving me to school every day and pulling up right behind the ambulance. And then she's in the ambulance. She gives me like this bag of money. It was like a bank pouch.
Wow.
And she tells me, don't let anybody take this from you. And I'm just like, okay. So I guess that was like her emergency plan or something. It was just really weird. So, and I guess I don't really have a recollection of how it happened, but what did they do? The older siblings, they took the money from me, right? Because here I am, 16, I'm in 11th grade. They're probably thinking, what is she gonna do with $2,000+? How is she gonna manage the bills? But I felt offended and violated by that. Like, how dare they do this to me? So then they decided, not only did I not have the right to keep that in my possession, I couldn't stay home anymore. So I ended up living between my grandmother's house and Aunt Audrey and Uncle Derek's house. So during the week, I would stay with Aunt Audrey and Uncle Derek because they were in Mount Vernon, not far from the high school. And then I would stay with my grandmother on the weekends. So as soon as this happened, Bernard told me, he's like, you need to get a job. It never dawned on me that I needed to get a job, but he said I needed to get a job.
Yeah.
So he drives me to Larchmont, to Roy Rogers. I walk in, I fill out the application, the manager gives me an interview on the spot, and here I am now, employed at Roy Rogers. So between going to school, he's driving me back and forth wherever I am. And while I'm working there, this family comes in, and the father is deaf, and he has like deaf speech. No one else can understand him. I'm the cashier. So I step in and I'm like, I managed to take this man's order and understand what he was saying. So I'm like, oh, so maybe this is like a gift, like a thing that I can do for a profession. So that kind of like reinforced my interest in the field, so grandma having the stroke and her speech being affected, the speech pathologist coming to the house, and it was successful. Now I know my grandmother's will played a big role in that, and her faith and prayer and everything. But I know the speech pathologist was a key factor in making that happen too. And then that experience with that family and that father that day really impacted me. Like, this is what I want to do. So when I graduated from high school, I had declared my major. When I got accepted to Adelphi, I declared my major as a freshman. I know most people go in undecided, but I chose Adelphi because they were a unique program because their High Weinberg Center actually allows bachelor level therapists to do clinicals. Yeah. Most programs, you have to wait till you're in grad school. So when I graduated with my bachelor's, I actually had clinical hours under my belt. So when I graduated, found out I was pregnant with Joel, incidentally, my grandmother, who was on her deathbed, told me I was pregnant with Joel. And I didn't even know. Like, I always remember, like, your father had just visited over the Christmas break. And I called him, he had just left. I called him on New Year's because grandma was like, you get up in the middle of the night, you take care of your baby, and you don't have another baby until you can feed and take care of that one. And I was like, what? I was like, do you know who you're talking to? And she's like, yeah, you. And so I call him and I'm like, can you believe this? So my period was due like January 13th. And sure enough, she died January 4th. Joel was there and that was history. She was right. I was pregnant.
Wow.
That was just like amazing to me. So it's just like with her, Aaron, I used to feel so sad because every time I took a step forward in my life, it's like she took a step back, you know, and then she's telling me I'm pregnant and Joel is like one soul leaves this world for one to come in, and Joel came right when she was leaving. And she knew it. I mean, wow. That was...
I mean, I couldn't imagine if that happened to me. So like, yeah, you have a baby on the way. You're like, you better not.
Yeah, well, you can play a role in preventing that, so.
That's true. All right, so that seems to be like a major turning point in your career. But was there a certain position you obtained, or was it the job at Manassas City Public Schools that really kind of shifted you towards the being solidified in that field for like a long term?
Oh my gosh, that time in my life was so wonderful. Just that was another gift from God, really, because most people, it was unheard of what God blessed me with in that position. It was really a God thing. I can't say anything else about it besides that, because it couldn't be planned, it can't be explained, but exceptions were made, and people will call it sometimes God's favor, and I really think that's what it was. So a position had opened up. You were maybe barely 8 months old, and a position opened up for a speech pathologist. Right. Well, in our field, technically, to become a licensed speech-language pathologist, we're always told you need a master's degree.
Right.
Well, they were still hiring bachelor-level therapists because there was a shortage in the field, and that's what they were doing. So what they did was put my title on my contract as speech-language assistant. Although I wasn't really assisting anyone. So when I was first hired part-time, I was working 2 days a week. And there were 3 of us doing this one position to cover the caseload. So then they said to me in spring, you know, what would you like? What position would you like next year? How many hours would you like to work? And I said full time, if I could.
Yeah.
And he said, okay. And I thought, oh, it was that easy? Okay, great. So now I'm going to be hired full time, going to get benefits. This is great. And then the position went down to 2 of us. And then it was just me doing that job. Wow. Typically, I think they had some kind of special conditions where you could be in that job for maybe in that position or with that title for 3 years. I think I was in that title for 8. Wow. Because grad school took like 5.5 years. And I think I did it for 3 before grad school. Right. So I was like, wow, how does this happen? But they were making it happen. And I was the only speech therapist for all the preschoolers in the city. They would all come to me at Jenny Dean. So it was just like awesome. I loved the position. It was wonderful. It was the best years of my life, despite the separation and divorce that occurred while I was working there the first few years, you know? So then I thought, okay, I got this one class under my belt. Let me apply to grad school. And even though I had applied again and got accepted, how am I going to logistically, once I've separated, and now it's just the 3 of us, me, you, and Joel, how am I going to logistically drive from Manassas from work to DC for classes at night in the dark parking? Who's going to watch you guys? How am I going to pay out-of-state tuition? Because that didn't dawn on me. When you talk about things I didn't factor in, it was just a school I was interested in that had a certified speech-language pathology program that I thought was a good fit for me, that I can get a great education. But all those logistics I thought were unsafe, unwise, and I didn't want that debt because I already had undergraduate debt that was ridiculous. okay, based on the separation, missing those 3 payments and getting an $8,000 penalty was like crazy. Always pay, no matter what. As Pastor would say, send them $10. Don't ever skip a payment. It's just not worth it. So I took a little hiatus from trying to go to grad school because I was questioning, like asking God, is this what I'm really meant to do? Because like I've applied twice, I've got accepted twice, but there were roadblocks each time. So is this really meant to be? So then I heard about this program called the FOSS program at JMU. They got a grant from the state of Virginia called Facilitating Licensure of Bachelor Level Speech Pathologists. So I was like, okay. And so there's tuition reimbursement. So what other therapists were doing that were like me, we would take courses because JMU was pretty competitive to get into. So you really had to prove yourself and take courses to get solid grades. You had to be really good because grad programs in speech pathology are very small because the supervision is intense. So you don't get a lot of, we're talking like 50, 30, 40, like it's limited. Sometimes it's less than that. So I started taking the classes. I think Aunt Lena sent me the seed money for that. And then from then on, tuition reimbursement at work just paid for grad school. So I never had any loans for grad school.
That's lovely.
So I was like, thank you, Jesus. Now I still have debt, right? I still have this undergraduate debt, but that's okay. You know, we were working with it. So there were some unexpected things. But it worked out, and I never had to really be away from you guys for long. And then
it was. I've when come to think about it, I kind of always wondered how. You know, I remember trying to go to sleep as a kid and like hearing like the pots and pans from cleaning up from like dinner, and then the light was always be on, and I would run down because I had like some bad nightmares just on the computer working, and you say all these things to ease my sorrows, ease my stress, whatever was going through my head, and then it was right back to the grind. I had no idea what was happening until we went to graduation. I was like, oh snap, Mom was in school this whole time. As a kid, you know, but you don't really know. You kind of forget like life is just Capri Suns and orange slices when you're a kid. You don't really notice that, and it was just really interesting how much went into just receiving. It's not anything small, but just to receive that, that degree, went through so many hoops and ladders. So with having us as children and having to provide meals and occasionally a dining experience, let's say if you couldn't cook at that time, how did that compare providing that for us when you were a child and grandma and grandpa would provide meals for you?
I think how do you compare that? It's just completely different dynamics. So there was dinner time at 6:00. You better be at the table, otherwise you're not going to eat. There was no microwave. The kitchen would close. Once she did the dishes and mopped the floor, you were not going in the kitchen again. It was over. Okay, so dinner time was at 6:00 every night that I remember. I remember Daddy bringing home table talk pies on Fridays or pineapples or whatever treats for us. But there wasn't a lot of eating out because it's a family of 7.
Right.
I mean,
in New York.
Yeah, that was not a thing that was done on a regular basis. I think it was very rare. Not even going to McDonald's that I can remember.
Wow. I
mean, I do remember I think Aunt Lena did it for me, like maybe a big birthday party. I think it was my 10th at McDonald's. That was a big deal. So even birthdays, it was like just you got your favorite meal, and we got this beautiful cake from this bakery called Artuso's. It had the best, I think, buttercream frosting, and it was like these sprinkles on the side, and it was just beautifully decorated and tasted amazing. So that was a big thing for you to be able to get a cake from Artuso's for your birthday.
It's like bringing a junior's cheesecake to the.
Kinda.
But like it was even better though.
Oh yeah, it was on Gramington Avenue in New York. It was like an Italian bakery, so they were known for their cannolis, and I'm not a cannoli fan, so I would like their chocolate eclairs.
Right.
And it might be a treat I could get on the way home from school sometimes if I had money, whatever.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, they're not open anymore. It's been a while, but that was really special. And then as far as us, I definitely, and I don't know if you remember this, but I definitely took advantage of kids eat free under 12 deals. We would go to Damon's in different spots, and I took advantage of that. I would plan it, different things that I had to take advantage of. Child support wasn't consistent. It came sometimes it didn't. So I had to manage my budget, and I was doing the envelope system before I even knew who Dave Ramsey was. My envelope for gas, food, entertainment, that was already established.
Yeah.
So if we could go out and you order from the kids menu or you get a meal for free, that's how we ate out most of the time. And then, the story. Once we, James and I married, God answered your prayers. Remember, you wanted somebody who would get you cable and to help me with everything that I needed to provide for us and to come to all the events with me. So I wouldn't have to do it by myself. God answered that prayer, because literally the week we got married, I want to say James had cable in the house. Or did he even put it? He might have put it in the house before we got married.
I had 3 prayers growing up, and it was very specific, and they were all answered. And cable television was one of them.
So true. So true. So we found out from James that birthdays were like a big deal. Bigger than, they were a big deal to us, but to James, it was like a real big deal. You could go to any restaurant you wanted to, right? And the sky was the limit. You had no boundaries on what you could order. So that was a complete shift, from my childhood experiences and his. He definitely never ate out.
Right.
As a child, there weren't even restaurants in Dominica that he could go to. Like, no. That wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
He was shocked when we went in 2012 that there were actually dine-in restaurants there. So I think it's been a huge change. He said everybody would go home for lunch.
Yeah. So it seems like it was almost like an intentional effort to kind of show us what you couldn't, like what you all didn't have, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
It's like exactly what like parents set out to do, is give a life better for their children, even if it's as small as dining out in a restaurant, receiving service, paying for a bill, and like, especially for a birthday, like that felt like everything. I remember on a special occasion getting like a strawberry lemonade was like, wow, So I definitely think that kind of influenced me in hospitality. Like over time, I definitely became more infatuated with it all from the dining experiences we had growing up. Water's my favorite beverage to this day.
Now, was it that bad, Aaron?
No, it wasn't that bad. It's just funny to say, because I see kids now ordering $6 Coca-Colas coming in can sizes. A $6 Coca-Cola, and my heart just I'm like, how? No, it would never even be a thought. It would never even come up. But we did go out. We did eat well. Like, I remember going to Mike's American restaurant. Like, we never had like a lot of elevated experiences. We didn't, until I came to New York, I didn't really know about an elevated dining experience. I only knew about it from what Virginia had to offer. I think Montclair Family Restaurant was like the closest thing to like mom and pop consistent dining that we did, where we could build a connection with the server.
Oh my gosh, we still remember the lady. Do you know she's still serving there? The cat lady server?
The cat lady.
With the long hair?
Yeah, it's so bad how we know her as the cat lady. No matter how many experiences she's given us to, we just can never stop thinking about the time where she was like, my cat died today.
And she would feed the cats outside the restaurant. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So she still asks about you and Joel to this day. And I think it's people like her that led me to that experience when I was in grad school, that in between time when I needed money that summer, you must have been like 3.5. Like,
I mean, it's definitely,
I want to say it was like 97. I'm going to say.
Anything pre-2001, I have no idea.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it was 97. I don't really think it was as late as 98, but yeah, it had to be 97 and separated in 96. So 97 was when I got this great idea that, maybe I should try waitressing. It was something that I had always admired, in college. I always thought it was cool that there were so many people working their way through college, working their way through school. You hear the stories, especially women pregnant, otherwise young men, young women. But then there were always these servers who were older, like the lady at Montclair Family Restaurant. This was really their profession. This is what they did for their livelihood. And when you're making $2.13 an hour, that's your guaranteed pay. How are they really surviving? But yet they provide such an awesome, if they're good at it. You know, we've had bad service, right? If they're good at it, it's an awesome experience and it makes you keep coming back. So it's a combination of quality food and quality service. No matter where you are, I think that impacts you and it tells whether you're going to come back again. Because your food could be awesome, but if the server's horrible, you're like, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to come back. If your server's awesome, you might say, this was a bad food experience. Maybe the chef was having a bad day, something went wrong, but that service was on point. I might try them again. Mm-hmm. Do you agree? I mean,
100%. I think there's 3 elements to a restaurant, and 2 of them are the most important, but there's one, like the ambiance is the third one, being that, like, you know, if you nail the ambiance, you should have the first 2, which is food and service down pat. If you have taken the time and focus on ambiance, you are executing food and executing service perfectly. Nobody wants to go to a place and feel bad. you just stay at home at that point, you know?
It's like to get tortured to eat tasty food. It's just, good service, I think, makes the food taste better, I guess. But I always wanted to try that, and I'm really glad I had the experience. And I always, enjoyed eating at Cracker Barrel. I thought it was a fun place. And my mindset was, I needed to work somewhere close to you guys that I didn't have a commute, right? $2.13 an hour is all I'm guaranteed. Right. But here I am with a, bachelor's degree, trying to earn a master's, and I'm deciding to be this server. But I really did want that experience. I just don't know why. I just always respected that. I thought it was a really honest living. Then people were really working hard, and I was like, can I really carry that tray? I was always having that fear, like, oh my God, I don't ever want to drop a tray on someone or on the and I didn't. I never had that problem, thank God.
That's good. That's good.
So I enjoyed it, right off 95. The benefit of working at that type of restaurant is that mostly travelers, and I was working in the summer. So most travelers are excited to spend their money because they don't live there. This is a fun experience. I'm on vacation. So it was always good. It was not like just locals that might be more disgruntled, I guess.
More common to be like, I live here. Like I have a stake in this land. I have a stake in this environment. Yeah, I get you. But to all the hospitality workers out there, my mom appreciates you. She obviously respects the craft. You can hear it.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it. One thing is, I don't know. I think you talked about at your restaurant, Legacy, there were actually glass polishers.
Yeah.
The downside of being a server, besides having to deal with a variety of customers and the unexpectedness and being on your feet, the side work, rolling silverware, setting salads, refilling, that is like, okay, and you have to keep track of the order and you have to check on it. You can't leave it under the heat lamp too long. It's just a lot. So you definitely need to be a quick thinker, pay attention to detail, learn all the codes. It's a lot. And I don't think people really realize it when it gets so frustrated with servers.
Right.
How much really is involved in that server is depending on everybody in the back. Of course, it starts with the server. You have to get the order put in right. But that doesn't mean they're going to fulfill it correctly.
Right. I mean, it's a lot of it's a huge system of checks and balances. Every restaurant's its own government. And like anybody who's in this position where you are taking orders or in a position of execution, you hold a really strong role, and you drop the ball once and everything can set on fire. One table can set the whole restaurant on fire and it can ruin the whole entire night. But there's some restaurants that are so good at hiding the fire that you'll never know what's happening. The kitchen can be back there screaming, yelling, and the servers are sweating, but the minute they hit the floor, it's like,
the choir starts singing angels.
Right. What's one dining experiences you've had over your glorious, beautiful life that has just really stuck out to you and as a fond memory?
I don't know if it's fun, but the high quality, I guess, positive dining experience I had recently was at the Chart House restaurant in Alexandria, Virginia. And I think part of it was that it was a surprise, of course. I didn't know. this was going to happen. I thought I was going to like go to some little local spot in Woodbridge, and James drove right by it, and I'm like, okay, what is happening? And so we get there, and of course it's a beautiful location because it's on the water. And this is the place, Aaron, I think I told you about, that a standard item on their salad bar is caviar. And James had taken me there on a date many years ago. Probably the first year we started dating, he took me to the Chart House, and I had like this embarrassing moment because the wait staff was just wonderful. And so he's asking, do we want bottled water or tap water? Well, you know, James is a bottled water man for sure.
Yeah.
I'm fine with either. Tap water doesn't matter. So he's offering me his selection. And I said, okay, I will take Aquafina. He said, Aquapana. And I said, oh, yes, Aquapana. So I'm like, okay, so this is, I was like, oh, what a faux pas. You know, like, I cannot believe that, but it's true story. Food is excellent. Service is great. I mean, the wait staff was just so on point. It was just so attentive. It was wonderful. So many years later, I mean, gosh, it's pretty much 15 years later, he's taking me back to surprise me for my 50th birthday. Totally shocked. And they have like this area set up, waterfront, glass, you know, windows all around, perfect view of the water. They customized the menu just for me with my name, Happy Birthday, Vanessa, and it's like the specialty menu. It was awesome. Ooh. And there's like appetizers all around, and it's just, well, of course I got to choose which ones, but calamari. You know, calamari can be so iffy and rubbery when it gets cold.
Yeah.
Absolutely delicious. It was just like no complaints. It was perfect. So it was awesome. And you know, my seafood palate, I would say, is limited. You know me, I've kind of been like a fried fish type, you know, fried shrimp person, you know, Johnny's Reef, City Island. Even though, you know, we've been to many, Sammy's Fish Box was a common restaurant for us to go to for my 6th grade graduation, different times as I got older. I got to eat out when I was the only baby in the house. Mommy took me to City Island all the time, whether it was the Seashore or JP's. And Johnny's Reef was like, you know, the fast food version, but it was delicious, right?
Yeah. I really miss those times in City Island.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so awesome. And the quality of the seafood, no matter where you go, is always good.
Right.
So here I am experimenting with a fish that's broiled with some kind of sauce on it, and just excellent, and grilled shrimp, you know, just delicious. There was no one complained. Everybody, and it's a good 20 of us at least. No one complained. Everybody said the food was delicious, from the service, the bread, to the wait staff, everything was great. And I will say, at the end of the night, they took all the extra menus, put a ribbon on it, and sent me home with my personalized menus.
Wow,
and that was just
really even at the end, all the way through.
Yeah.
Till they leave the door. That's how you do it. I'm actually proud of Virginia for doing that. I'm really proud of my state. Way to go.
Yeah, and I kept them. I still have them. So it was just excellent. And I would definitely go back, and I would recommend it to anybody. So that was one of my, I guess, best and most recent dining experiences, was at the Chart House.
Lovely.
I mean,
good.
you can't go wrong with the view of the National Harbor.
No.
In DC.
Right. Back to talking more about speech-language pathology, because I feel like you being in that career really helped me going forward in what I wanted to do in life. And I think these things came natural. When we spoke earlier about this, you said that, you know, the children's vocabulary and how they speak is directly correlates with the mother's education level. And as anybody can see, my mother has an extensive education level. So I had a head start. I didn't really follow up as well as my mom, but I had a head start.
That's okay. You're doing fine.
So thank you, Mom. I wanted to see, like, going into speech-language pathology and how it started for you with having your grandmother being your inspiration, then it's re-solidifying in your life experiences. How did your vision going in, you know, in your youth, how has it changed now, and being now in a mature role as a mother, a grandmother, what's your mission now? And what it directly affected those changes?
I think initially I had a vision that I was going to open up my own practice. I was going to have this private practice, and it was going to cover everything. It was just going to have like, me, speech-language pathologist, occupational therapist, physical therapist, maybe a neurologist, physician, social workers. It was just going to be this all-inclusive practice where people can have all their therapeutic needs met, maybe a psychologist, psychiatrist, just like a full team. Well, when you go to grad school and you learn what the overhead is like to have all the tests, all the insurance, all the materials. And remember, I went to grad school while working full time. So I wasn't like a typical grad student who'd never been in the profession before. I knew what the materials cost. I knew what the time would be to put into it. So they also tell you in grad school that really, when you work in the school system, you make more per diem than you do doing private practice, because they, even in hospital setting, they work year round. I got paid summers and holidays off. So my number of contact hours that I work for my salary is nicely offset by all these vacations that are embedded, which was a perfect job for me with raising you and your brother, because every time you were off, I was off.
Yeah.
Every holiday we were together. I didn't have to get babysitters for you guys during those times. Every summer we were together. Remember, you're doing a library reading program? I'm taking you to cash in your rewards. I'm the one with you. I was not a parent that felt that I needed a break. I needed somebody to watch my kids. The only time I was away from you was when I had to go away to school, whether I had to go out to Longwood for classes or to UVA or wherever I was going. Wherever it was, where Aunt Lane or Aunt Michelle, you had to go stay with them for me to go travel to a class. Right. But pretty much, I don't remember ever getting babysitters for you guys. So I feel like people, were just placed in my life to make it work, So that vision was great. But working in the public schools, I think, met my needs, and it also met a need in the public school system, because Jenny Dean Elementary School was a Title I school. So being in Manassas, I had a lot of low income students, and it was really, to me, a greater investment than to just be filing insurance claims, and working for myself. Yeah. Really, this job was a gift to me in so many ways, that I got to be with you and Joel and not away from you guys. So to me, that's priceless. There's no rack of money I could make that would be more beneficial or fulfilling to me than being with the two of you. It's absolutely priceless to me.
So, speaking of that, what's one thing on that road and during that, you worked with preschool kids and you've then transferred once you moved to Fredericksburg. You're now working with high school, middle school students. So you're working with more individual personalities and stronger personalities. What's something
that doesn't faze me?
I mean, it doesn't faze you, but it's like, yeah, I mean, you had us for sons, so like, it's no big deal. But like, what's one thing you underestimated working with those students, if there was anything that you didn't take into account?
So here's, again, a bonus. When I was doing preschool, you guys were preschool age, so I could identify with those interests of those children, right? And it just happened to be that you guys were so little, and I could relate. When I switched to Stafford, you and Joel were middle school. And what did they ask me? Would you do middle school and, would you go to the secondary level? They knew I had preschool experience. And I remember Rita Popper, she says, would you take on middle and high school? Would you do secondary level? And I was like, that's a big jump. 12 years of preschool therapy. Now I have to go to secondary. Okay. But everything that you and Joel were doing was relative and relevant to my new job placement. So you guys basically gave me the insights I needed for this population. I mean, I had to learn a lot about graduation requirements, diploma status, but my experiences, basically, you guys helped me to master. I think the funny part was, though, elementary school temperament is completely different from middle school and high school temperaments with the teachers. Teachers act like elementary school. Like between the rompers and the little crayon and chalkboard earrings and the way they dress and their attitudes and temperaments, like way more emotional. Middle and high school, like I was trying to consult with teachers after work and they're out. Like they're all about getting in early, leaving on time. Their whole demeanor, they're just much more focused and serious and objective. So I think that was an adjustment because
it wasn't as laissez-faire as it used to be.
Not right. Well, not even laissez-faire. It was just a different mindset, middle school and high school. So it's almost like the students are more mature, the educators are more mature. So that was an adjustment, I think, to know that they're serious about their hours. They're not going to necessarily stay late and prep their classrooms. Some do, but it's minimal. Not like elementary. You'll see so many people there late doing stuff, prepping for the next day. Here, some of them do, but for the most part, they're in and out.
Like school's not going to catch on fire.
Yeah, right. They tried. They're serious about their hours, you know. Right. So that was a big change.
Right. So it appears when you moved to Fredericksburg after being remarried and we started going to middle school and high school, you got hit. You were used to working at one, maybe a couple being spread out, but they all came. There was one school and all the other schools came to you when you were at Jeannie Dean. But now you had to spread your wings over 2-3 schools. And you actually had to be on site at those places. Were you comfortable in taking on more, or were they just threw it at you and said, good luck?
Oh, no, that's not, it's not, no, I wasn't comfortable. No, I had no idea how to do it. It's a juggling act. And it's still a long process to create a schedule every year, but I rose to the occasion, I should say, because it's just the nature of the job. Each school doesn't really have the numbers to just have a full-time speech pathologist at one school. So at the secondary level, they expect you to have more than one school. Wow. And depending on the numbers, like if my caseload was lower, they would want me to help out another school or vice versa. So this year wasn't a year to get help. My caseload was very high, but we were down like 3 therapists. So you just had to make do with what you had. Wow.
Been going strong 26 plus years.
Yes.
While others are dropping, you stayed along the course, you know? How many other people in that career do you know that have been in there 26 plus years?
Oh, there's people. There's a lot of people. Yeah, they do. There's usually, unless health takes them out or they just get burnt out. Like a lot of times when, especially nowadays, you know, people in 20 somethings, if they don't like a job, they're just leaving. They're going to reinvent themselves. They're just not doing it. Like they can't have it. Like their happiness is more important than a contract. Their happiness is more important than the students. They're just like, this is not working for me. I'm out. I'm doing something else. There was one young speech path. She came in and she just left and did an IT job. Wow. She just chucked her whole degree. She was like, forget this. I'm doing web design or IT. We were like, oh, okay. She did like 1 year. She was gone.
Hey, do you?
Yeah. I mean, and some people, they switch to teaching. Some of them don't like it. I mean, it's very technical, very demanding, time consuming. The reports, you know how between IEPs and writing reports.
I've heard IEPs my whole life. I don't even want to know what an IEP looks like at this point. I'm traumatized by IEPs. I have to write them. You know?
You and your brother, because your brother said there's no way he would do Teach for America or anywhere. He's not teaching anywhere.
Nope. No. I'm good. I like what I do right now. So this is actually a really good time, Mom. We're going to take a small intermission. Here's some word for our sponsors. My wine's setting in really well. Tastes like a strawberry shortcake in bubble form.
Oh.
Yeah. It's really delicious. When we come back, we're going to talk about your great state of New York and how that has shaped your life and made you who you are today.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. We'll be right back with the Hot Plates and Grace podcast. Thank you. The wine enjoyed on this episode was provided by Parcel Wine Shop, a curated wine shop and online retailer with nationwide shipping, curated by a team of New York's finest sommeliers, located at 511 West 38th Street in Hudson Yards, New York City. Subscribe to Parcel's Wine Drop, a new delivery service featuring 3 hand-selected bottles for $95 per month. Parcel, wine for every scenario. The Hot Plates and Grace podcast was brought to you by Delicious Hospitality Group, the group that brought you Charlie Bird, Pasquale Jones, Legacy Records, Ada's Place, Easy Victor's Cafe, and a brand new restaurant that's coming soon. These are my favorite places in Manhattan where you can eat great food, drink fantastic wine, and listen to a fire curated playlist. Place an order today. Now back to the show. All right, and welcome back to the Hot Plates and Grace podcast. I'm Aaron Mays. I have my guest with me, my mother, Vanessa Collins, speech-language pathologist of the Stafford County Public School system in Virginia, and we're here back to talk about her life in New York and how it has transformed her life or made her who she is today in the present day time. So, Mom, being born and raised in New York, did that give you the confidence that you can make it anywhere?
Well, of course. I mean, as the song goes,
right? I just have to check.
Make it there, you can make it anywhere, right? I mean, right. New York is the best place on earth, And growing up in Mount Vernon is truly the best of both worlds, because you're in Lower Westchester. You're downstate. People think it's upstate, although you have to drive a long ways to get to true upstate. But it's a true suburb. It's urban, but it's just on the outskirts. Like literally we could walk to the Bronx. I mean, what else could you ask for? I mean, I grew up in an apartment building, but of course it was a really, really nice building. Like in my younger years, like we literally had this beautiful playground with benches, the slides, swings, seesaw. Like it was just really, really nice. Basketball hoop. And of course it eventually got destroyed and it's not there anymore. But I just had the best of both worlds growing up in an apartment building, city living, but yet it's just suburban. It's not the same like what people think of New York City as like a concrete jungle. New York City, like I spent a lot of time on Grand Concourse when I would go visit my cousin Francesca. She lived with her grandmother for a long time in Concourse Village, and so I had my experiences with her there. Not far from Yankee Stadium, and I spent tons of time in New Rochelle, with my grandmother's house, and it's just priceless. I wouldn't have wanted anything else. I don't know how else to explain it. I think it's just, I really grew up, I think people wouldn't think it's perfect because people think of Mount Vernon as a crime-infested place. They think of it as the least of Westchester. I knew I grew up in the North Side and I spent some time on the South Side, but there were places I was told I was not to go,
We're one of those places, because I know you mentioned growing up that, out in money earning Mount Vernon, there was a fellow really famous rapper who died way before his time, Heavy D and his boys. And what was that like? Being around that environment, especially in like the rise of the golden age of hip hop?
Well, Heavy was one of the sweetest people I've ever known. I mean, we went to elementary school together. I believe he was a year ahead of me. And a lot of his boys, I want to say Troy and Glenn, they were, I want to say in my same class. And then P Rock was a year behind us, I believe.
Wait. You never talk about P Rock. You never mentioned
all hang out on the corner at the pizza shop.
All right, okay.
And the playground was right near there, right behind the pizza shop. So, Heavy was just one of the sweetest people, just unassuming, very low-key, quiet, kind of shy, just really soft-spoken and sweet. And I really would have never expected him to become who he did, but couldn't be happier for him.
Right.
I couldn't be happier for him or Al or even Puffy. I didn't know Puffy on that level. I think graduation party, I went to his house once. I think he threw a graduation party, but he went to private school, so he didn't go to the high school with us. But DJ Eddie F, which was Heavy's, Dwight's DJ.
Yeah.
it's basically ain't no party like an Eddie F party. I mean, we would walk we would walk to his house, which was way on the other side of town. If he was throwing a house party, he would DJ our like high school, the junior prom. He DJ'd all of our parties, like homecoming. You know, if Eddie F is the DJ, everybody's going.
Right.
That's just how it was. And Eddie F was really smart. He was a good student. I want to say he like earned some scholarships, you know, for college and stuff, and just really nice guys, just really great, good people. Have nothing but golden things to say about all of them.
That's awesome.
And God rest his soul. I want to say Troy was the one that passed away from the stage accident. One of the dancers that fell.
I'm not too like I said, I don't know much about the whole like Heavy D, that experience. It's like it's really great to hear from you because you know you only Heavy D and Limousine. That's all you really know in this generation. And I remember scrolling on YouTube way back in the day, listening to the Money Earned in Mount Vernon song, and like just kind of him putting on Mount Vernon in that area. You know, I never knew that it was really considered an area where people came from filled with talent until you do your research and you realize all the people who are from Mount Vernon, who spent time in Mount Vernon.
I mean, not just Denzel Washington, Debbie Allen, Felicia Rashad,
right?
Dick Clark. Lots of people are from Mount Vernon. Lots of famous people.
And they had the nerve to call it upstate. So you got Heavy in his truest sense before stardom, fame, lights, cameras, or action.
Oh my God, just good people. Just one of the nicest people. I mean, he grew up in the Heights. I want to say an older brother and sister, and just wonderful person. That's
so beautiful. I love that story. That was so inspiring. Somebody who's like really into like the hip hop culture and what it is now, and like I spent my whole life just like kind of like researching the starts of hip hop, the roots, and especially you being from some of the roots. And during that golden age of hip hop, it's like amazing how like there's a small tie, for me to the hip hop industry. So I feel it's even more romanticized now, thinking about it. Now it's like even more solidified. Okay, this is I truly believe I have this in me because of my mother, my upbringing.
And I mean, I celebrated them or rejoiced for them in their success because literally seeing them hang out on the corner at the pizza shop, to that level of stardom and success is just wonderful.
Wow.
I mean, it's just awesome. I think all of us were cheering for them and wanting the best for them, unless they were just haters. But for the most part, I think everybody wanted them to be
always
successful.
Haters, right? There's always going to be the haters. But did that seeing somebody from your area grow to that limelight, did that inspire you going forward to be great as well, or to at least put your best foot forward in anything that you did? You're doing great things now, and your best foot is forward. But did that experience, people around you who did great things, inspire you to do that as well?
I do think there is a sense of pride from where we grew up that we were to be something greater than our circumstances, because many of us, but not all of us, because many people like Puffy or Heavy, they grew up in single family homes. Here I was, I'm living in an apartment building. I didn't know how poor I was until I became an adult and knew how I was really low income. Right. I just never knew it. I never went without. I was just blessed. I had everything I needed, but we weren't well to do at all, really. Mm-hmm. So I just think there was an expectation that we all had to stay out of jail. I mean, my mother was like, if you go to jail, don't call me.
So when you came up here during my graduation, when I graduated from the Institute of Culinary Education, we went to Pasquale Jones and we got a lunch. We had a lunch reservation, but even from the jump, they were very receptive. And I remember all the bells and whistles of that day, and I felt like so taken care of. And I never really got asked your opinion about that dining experience. And it really ties into this question of, do you think the hospitality of New York City is the best? That they started the trend, they are the culture, and it trickles down into other places?
I'm biased. So growing up, really and truly, I know this just shows how limited my world was and my scope of thinking. I didn't travel a lot growing up. I think we vacationed, vacation. We went on one vacation to New Hampshire once, and that's where they think I'm dark, in New Hampshire. Like I'm foreign. And then North Carolina to visit family. I didn't travel much, so I didn't see much. I didn't go out of the country until we went to Canada, and I was like in my 30s. And I really only thought New York and California really existed. Nothing else in between mattered, except for North Carolina, where my family was. Like, New York and California were the spots. Those were like where you could be successful, right? New York City, Hollywood. So New York was always the gold standard. I love New York. Like, there were commercials, like it was just a thing. So there was no place better than New York, period. That was the best place in the world. So I felt like the rest of the world was trying to emulate and measure up to New York. That was what I always thought. So the dining experience that we had at Pasquale Jones, I found it unique because, I love the wine glasses. I think they're just beautiful. And it tickled me when you were educating me about I needed to order every course at one time. That was a new experience for me. And you know how hard I am with making decisions. So I'm like, okay, I'll go with what you recommend.
Yeah.
So I didn't find it to be any kind of unusual service, or I don't want to say it wasn't exceptional, because it was high quality. And I think the presentation and the food, everything was fine, but I didn't find it to be like unexpected.
Right.
I think it was what I expected. At that time though, the unusual part was the tip being included. That was unsettling. I wasn't comfortable with that. And I wasn't comfortable with that. Like, I felt like I had to do something extra, and I really should have just taken a back seat and accepted that was the standard. So that was very new to me, and I didn't really understand it. I was accustomed to a tip being a separate line item, gratuity for a large group is included, blah, 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 but not it embedded in the price where there's no tip. I felt like I was missing something. One thing I will say, that because I'm a non-drinker, I choose not to indulge very much. I think I sampled the wine that you selected that day. Yeah. But I wonder how I would have perceived the experience had I indulged more pairing the wine with the entrees and the appetizers, how that would have affected things. Because I know that you becoming this wine connoisseur and really talking about wine pairings, how my experience would have been different toward the overall experience. Because I'm not anti-wine with a meal. I'm very anti-alcoholism becoming drunk. That I have issues with, and I choose to abstain, but I will sample, right? So that part, I guess, looking back at it, I wonder how that would have impacted it, because I think that was the whole experience based on the delicious, what did you say, hospitality group.
It's all very subjective at the end of the day, but I do get that in that case, because there is something to it with the service of the wine, presenting it, the aeration, oxidation, the time, how it opens up with the meal, each bite, each sip. Yeah, there's a romantic part of that.
Yeah,
but it's not everything. As long as the food's good, it's what you want out of the experience. Do you still feel like New York City's hospitality is the best after dining out in different countries?
I guess the best is relative, because I think setting and, when you're at an all-inclusive resort in Jamaica on the beach, versus in a New York City restaurant with the clamor and the noise and, I don't know, best is relative to me. But I think and the attention factor that you get on those resorts, that's their livelihood. Like, tourism is important to New York City, but there's also a base of locals who are going to dine out, that have the income, that can dine out. But when you're on those, in those tourist locations, that's their bread and butter, that's their livelihood. Now, servers locally in New York City, I'm sure that's their bread and butter and their livelihood, but it's a different mindset. So when you're there as a guest in some of those locations abroad, the service is very on point in most cases. Like, they're there to please and bend over backwards. So I don't want to say that there might be a level of arrogance in New York City that you should feel privileged to be in our establishment just as much as we should feel privileged that you're here. So I don't know that best is a term that I could really apply in that case. I do say it's still excellent. It's high level. I think that it does set the gold standard. But how you feel in other places sometimes may top that, because when you're dining in New York, like if I go on vacation and I come to New York, it's still not the same as when I go to the Caribbean or go to Europe.
Right.
And I don't know if it's because I'm more familiar. This is where I grew up. We did get to go to venture to the city. We did have some experiences. So it's not as new. I think it depends on maybe the occasion, what you're celebrating, what is happening. I think there needs to be some meaning to the occasion. Maybe if you look at purely fine dining, New York may exceed most places in the world, if you want to look at it like that.
So we're speaking about experiences in New York. It doesn't have to be dining. What's the really fun experience you had? Young, high school, coming of age story that you had in New York City, Mount Vernon, Bronx. You name it.
There's some things, and I've shared this with you multiple times. White Castle has a really special place in our heart, because after every party, we would basically go to White Castle, do a late night ride to, White Castle and just hang out. Thank God Aunt Angie had a license and a car, and that's what we would do, and then on Sundays, late night, Baychester Diner, or New Rochelle, go to the Thruway Diner. And they've torn down the old Thruway Diner and put up the New Rochelle Diner now, not just feet away from the original. So I think what makes New York unique too is that you can go somewhere and get some food to eat 24 hours a day. Somewhere there's a diner open. White Castle's never closed. Down here you basically are stuck with 7-Eleven. Right.
Wawa. And it's Wawa's high end, late night eats.
Or I think Woodbridge has a Silver Diner, right? So I'm not even sure. I don't think they're open 24 hours, or maybe till midnight or whatever. But I think that was just fond memories of being able to just go to a diner, just you and your friends, no matter what time it is, we're going to a diner. But my fun spot we used to go to was the Olive Tree in Greenwich Village.
Yeah.
And we used to love going there for the Greek food, the chalkboard tables. That was always fun to write on tables, and the silent Charlie Chaplin movies are in the back on the screen. Yeah. And, that used to be a fun late night spot we would go to. So I think just taking advantage of New York City, like I said, Mount Vernon is the best of both worlds, because you're not in the city, but you can get to the city by car 25 minutes, 25 minute drive, depending on where you're going. Or South Street Seaport, to go there and look at the Brooklyn Bridge and we ended up there by accident one time. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
And seeing street performers and different stuff. So I think there's no place else. Of course, I haven't gone to California yet, but I feel like those are some things people don't talk about, because they think of diner food as low class, but you can really get some decent meals at a diner. We have fond memories growing up, like my prom night, going to IHOP the next morning, staying out all night. My senior prom was at Marina Del Rey. Just different experiences that we had that me and my friends would do, once we could drive or whatever, even though I didn't get my license till the day I left New York, but it was just fun, and I think that makes it different. Whereas when you grew up down here, you basically, everybody had to have a car. There was no real public transportation. And then you always chilling at somebody's house. I don't know where you would have gone out to eat. Like you said, you might have to get gas station food.
Yeah, it's Wawa. That's the closest.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So I think, having those memories of your friends getting together at a diner all night, just sitting there laughing, talking, ordering food, whatever. I think those were fond memories, going to a party, going out to eat. And I think because my friends were our level, we hung out at Aunt Angie's was wine coolers. We were never the drinkers, smokers, that wasn't us. So just having these fun experiences of 24-hour eateries was really a big thing, I think.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing really open in Mount Vernon. We had to go to the Bronx.
So the fact that you could just be like, oh, we're done with this party, let's go to White Castle and just hang out. let's go to this diner. It's open. It's not loitering. You're not out past a curfew time. There's no police going to pull up on you and be like, what are you doing out? Where's your parents? That type of thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I hope I answered your question.
Oh, more than answer the question. I got a lot more than I expected. It's great. I'm glad I got to hear these New York experiences firsthand. Again, even more in depth. I know a lot, but our listeners don't really know everything. Mom's a cool person. She's a dope person. You gotta know. You gotta learn and hear what she's been through. It's really cool. So I want to talk more about now, because I feel like we got a lot from the New York stuff. Let's talk about now your mindset, your contributions to your field of work, and even to like people you talk to on a daily basis. I know you kind of help mentor, especially a lot of single women who've been through the same experiences you have been. So when you wake up every day, what is your goal in life, or what light are you trying to shine?
Well, I always joke and say I'm living the dream, because I wanted to do this job since I was 16. So professionally, my heart is in this job. This is also kind of like a ministry too, because my prayer is that all my students would become excellent communicators, and I always say communication is our greatest gift, and it touches my heart when I can see my students become successful. I remember a little boy, his name was Jonathan, and when I met him in preschool, all he said was, no matter what you said to him, his answer was, By the time he went to kindergarten, he was communicating in full sentences and having conversations. And that was just amazing, Wow. And it's just a blessing to be able to help a child speak. And I have some students that don't have any sounds or words, but we have to help them have alternative communication methods, which is always a challenge. But I really aim to try to support my students and my colleagues to help our students communicate in the best way possible, however that is. And I also want to shed the light of the Lord. I want to reflect the Heavenly Father whenever I interact with people. I want to demonstrate good character. And like you said, helping because I'm a former single parent. I've been blessed to be married to wonderful James for 15 and a half years now. But I do want to encourage them, based on, there's a cliche that says, if you don't have a test, you won't have a testimony. And some people say you overcome by the word of your testimony. So I try to encourage other single parents that it is possible. Look at the miracles God provided and performed for me. He can do it for you. It may not come in the same way that mine did, because I really think about how, even looking back at my Jenny Dean years, my friend Karen Rossello, she was a child find coordinator for years. And then when I got to grad school, I had to do my practicum at work. I asked her, Karen, will you supervise my practicum here? Will you be my supervisor? And the person I worked with for all these years is now supervising and signing for my hours. It's just people being put in my path, with Renee Sanders just showing up and going through the grad school program with me. I do want them to see God in me. I really do. I think we should be the hands and feet of Christ on earth as disciples and followers of Jesus Christ. I think that we're not perfect, but He is. So I do want to be a good living example of that. And I always tell you, nobody's perfect, but I do want to try. So I do want to be a positive person at work, a team player, and supportive, and of course, extremely detailed, which is sometimes the downfall that just keeps me at work so late. And James will always say, I don't think anybody else is doing what you're doing, but I do want to do it well, Right. I just don't know how to take shortcuts and not follow the rules and do what I'm supposed to do. So I'm really thankful. And I think that's the light I would like to I want to lead by example.
That's great. And I think you've done a tremendous job in that, especially, my brother and myself. I think everything that you've tried to implement has happened. Like, I feel like I make a lot of conscious efforts in the way I act in society based off what you show me. Like, even the whole purpose of this podcast is to use experiences to inspire and motivate others on their walk. And that's literally what you do with single parent mothers through your experiences. Like, I feel as if I have accomplished something. And like, with speaking, people who have accomplished more than myself will help motivate me get more. And those who have accomplished something and want more can feel like they can do more. Like, they can do it by hearing the stories of those who've been through it and who have done that. And personally, I feel like I even have a deeper respect for people who have like been through tests to have a testimony. So I feel like without even knowing it, I'm like, your light that you're trying to shine has like been through me, like through blood pretty much. And like, I'm portraying that now out into the earth and like through my profession. You're welcome. Of course. Thank you, Mom. And so where do you see your career going from here? Are you looking to further your practice, stay in, or are you looking to call it quits? You put a lot of your life in yourself. Where from
my
here?
Gosh. Call it quits. Oh my gosh, I wish. I hate to say that, but when last March 12th happened and this coronavirus hit, and I mean, we're having to work from home virtually. We're in meetings all day. It was just craziness trying to figure out, how do I do this job? I mean, I'm taking webinars after webinars after webinars, just trying to learn this new skill set. After, like you said, 25 years, I was doing this. Like, okay, I do this face to face. I work with people. How am I going to do this virtually through a camera? Like, and then I had to take an ethics course because ASHA included that as a requirement for us to maintain our Cs. And there, I'm reading where it says virtual speech teletherapy is what we call it. Teletherapy, telepractice has to be the same quality as in-person therapy. So I'm like, oh great, now it's even more pressure. Really? Wow. I have to make sure it's the same quality. Oh my God, how do I use these virtual materials? How do I learn these tools? I mean, it was like intense pressure. I feel like that I never slept from March till September.
Yeah.
And I cried so much from August to September with the thought that I had to go to face-to-face with students because some of my students just can't learn virtually. So I had warred with that. Can I take early retirement? Can I live off of half of my salary? Well, actually, it would be less. It would be only a third if I didn't meet my 30 years. Wow. So, I had met with my financial advisor in the summer, and he said if I did my 30 years, I would be okay. So during this time, I just made haste. I've been really trying to save, really pay off debts, basically only have the house to pay off. And, I try to send you the articles, what I learned. I try to pass along to you or Joel or whoever will listen. Yeah. 'Cause nobody taught me that growing up. My mother didn't give me any formulas or any tools, and she didn't know any better. I mean, she didn't even want me to buy the house when I was buying my house by myself as a single parent at 32. This was unheard of. Nobody in my family had ever done that. I'm the first one to get my master's. I mean, my sister Michelle had a bachelor's, but I'm getting my master's. My mother's like, how are you going to pay your mortgage? And I said, well, Ma, the same way God helped me pay rent, he's going to help me pay a mortgage. And that was done, so can I retire right now? No, like technically. And I don't want to. I was grieving because it became so challenging and so hard to learn virtual speech therapy and to do a virtual and face-to-face schedule. And then I had a kid who wasn't wearing a mask. It was just like a lot. But I cried my eyes out for a couple of weeks, at least twice a week, and then got over that, prayed, got over the fear, came to work. Thank God I've been well and healthy this whole time. And the earliest technically I can retire is July 2025. And we'll see, but I am really working on trying to be established because I don't want to be a burden on you or Joel or anybody. I really want James and I to be established and well well off. You know, money is not, I've never been like one chasing money. It's just, there's so many more important things in life, like our health, quality of life, serving God, doing ministry, helping other people, you know, family time. Like that's so golden to me, to spend time together. And now traveling, you know, that's a hobby, right?
Yeah. Newly acquired hobby.
I know, right? I never thought I had or would like to have or do. So no, I don't plan on shifting gears. I love my schools. I love my administrators. The job is cumbersome, taxing, mentally taxing, time consuming, all that. But I do feel like it's a calling and what I'm meant to do. I've thought about it. What else can I do to make this much money that doesn't have this kind of paperwork? I've thought about it. I've asked myself, I've asked God, okay, is there anything else I could do? But it comes back, just like I questioned in my 20s, is this what I'm meant to do? This is what I'm meant to do. And I am thankful for it. I got a thank you letter from a senior thanking me for helping him to graduate, because I've had him from 6th grade to 12th grade, and an email from a parent thanking me for the work I'm doing with her daughter. So whatever other issues, it's just all worth it in the end for our students to make progress. And I'm just grateful to have the opportunity. And I am thankful to you and Joel for being the awesome, upstanding citizens, the loving sons, the God-fearing men you are. I'm really grateful. And I'm proud of both of you. I'm really proud of you. And God answers prayers, because Lord knows, you know, I prayed for you. I'm grateful.
I mean, it's really inspiring to hear what keeps you going, because like it's really tough when you're doing something you love. Because even when you're doing something you love, it could be very disheartening. So there could be situations like, okay, like you said, you know, something unprecedented can happen. Being in there for so long, it's been kind of the same for so long. Something so, to the whole world, traumatic, puts everything at a standstill, and it becomes twice as challenging as it was before. But to still have small things, little, even a thank you or like a card from something that you put time and effort in to come back, you know, however many fold to you, and a sense of gratitude keeps you going. And like, I feel like some people, when they have like a rough day, and they have like a really, even like a chef can have like the worst day of his life, and some of your guests is like, I want to speak to the chef, and he's having such a bad day. They can say, this food saved my day, it's so great. That could keep him going. Like, that's all he needed. Everything could have been on the right, saying I'm ready to quit, but that one thing there kept him going. And it's kind of like sometimes a thesis of this whole thing is like, what keeps you going? There's so much good, there's so much bad, there's so much ugly that goes into what you want to do in life, but what is keeping you going? And it's, I'm really glad I got to hear that organically from you, you know, as my mother, you know, but also having a kind of really intense profession, you know. It's great to know. So I really want to say, Mom, thank you so much for being a part of this installation of our podcast, being a part of this. It's not about me in this podcast at all. It's always about the guests. But I felt like it was important to kind of see where I came from and my influences, and like hearing the way you speak. It's literally like I'm like the spitting image of you, just male version, really. You know, I wish I was as organized as you, but we'll get there.
Yeah, but it's coming. Remember, the pandemic caused you. Wasn't it the pandemic that caused you to buy a planner and you actually wrote in it?
Yeah, I have a whiteboard. Yeah.
Yeah. All the stuff.
I'm afraid of my own potential.
Yes, you've seen my list for years, and I'm like, Aaron, you need to write it down. You were like, I got it. I don't need to write it down. And I'm like, oh my God, you would really write it down. Like, please. I'm excited, and I will tell you that I am quite honored that you asked me to participate. I was extremely nervous, as you know.
Yeah.
But I told you, how could I say no to you? I mean, that's just not reasonable. I could never say no.
Well, I'm really thankful for you as a mother, and the insight and the life you provided for me. I'm always internally grateful for the life I was given to, because nothing was ever guaranteed, and we got it. There's a term now, got it out the mud. We literally got it out the mud, and everything we received, we earned, and I feel like it was deserved. It wasn't because we could just pay for it. We would work towards the goal, like set a goal, achieve it, and it always meant something. And before I get too sidetracked and a bunch of like remarks and stuff, this is the time for you to plug in. All our guests, we have them plug in their projects, they're working on. Anybody you want to shout out at the moment? So now's the time for you to plug in anybody that you want to support, anything that you've seen, internet, news, the church, any movements that you want to shed some light on. Now's the time. I give the floor to you for that.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think I tried to drop names off and on throughout this podcast. And I mean, I know for sure that Pastor John Payton has been a great influence in my life. I mean, if it wasn't for him, I would have never became that homeowner then. My sisters, my family, my parents, what they instilled in us, their work ethic and their lifestyle. Being raised in church, my grandmother, I wouldn't be who I am without her. Even Aunt Angie, my oldest friend, like influencing my life. There's so many people. I mentioned Renee Sanders, Karen Rossello, all my colleagues that I've worked with over the years have been a blessing. My dear husband, James, and he's been a blessing, and he's been consistent and a devoted husband. As you know, hasn't always been easy. Being a blended family is not always easy, and even I can even say to this day, I'm grateful even for your father, because if it wasn't for that marriage, I wouldn't have you and Joel. So, you just have to thank God for all things. Give thanks in all things, even if it's not always pretty, but it was a time when it was good, so just looking back and giving thanks. You learn to abase, you learn to abound, and be content in whatever state you're in. That's really essential. So I'm grateful for everyone who's helped me to get where I am. I don't take it for granted, and I do want to give back. Even when we had the townhouse, I would try to rent to single parents, although that didn't work always out well in my favor, but that house was a blessing and got out of lots of debts when I sold it. So I'm just thankful for every opportunity, every person who crossed my path. And you know how that goes. Even Miss Angela, when I had to move, she even said, I'll pay for your rental truck if you want to, your moving truck if you want to move. And it's like, we had just met like the month before.
Yeah.
So there's just so many people that I'm grateful for, and all the blessings God's given me. And I hope I didn't miss anybody.
The best way to repay anybody is just success. So I'm doing everything in my power, putting every foot forward to utilize what you taught me, what you implemented in me, and using it in my life. And even though I live a more secular life compared to you, it's still every value that you taught from me or taught to me is still there consciously, and making of valiant efforts to make you proud every single day.
Right. And now I'm thinking of what it was. I didn't finish my thought. That's saying, if you grow up to be fools, it's on you, not me. I can go to my grave tomorrow and know I did my best and I have no regrets. That's what the rest of that was. There was nothing else I could do, because I told you I could love you, I could teach you, but I can't live for you. And that is how it's turned out. And thank God it's going well. Joel is doing well. Everybody makes mistakes, Aaron.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
And thank God by grace we can recover. And I thank God you are recovering. You have recovered, and I'm just thankful. And really and truly, most of us are pretty secular in our 20s.
Right.
That doesn't mean you have to choose that lifestyle, but most of us were. I look back at it. I've thought about that, and I'm like, many of us were living that kind of more carefree life in our 20s. And
you're invincible until you turn 30.
Oh, if only.
Yeah. Well, all right, Mom. Anthony and I are going to top off our glass, since you don't have one to join with.
I know. I feel like this should open Coke or something.
All right, and then so for our season finale, I just, closing remarks. I already said it. Just thank you so much for helping us round out an amazing season. We've had so much fun creating it. We hope everybody out here who's consumed it has enjoyed it half as much as we enjoyed making it for you, because truly we really wanted to create good product, good content that's easily digestible to any and everyone out there who wants to be somebody in the hospitality industry or any industry relevant to it. So I just want to raise my glass to you, Mother, and say thank you so much. And if you really could, luckily we're virtual, so doing the cheers, my alcohol to your water, even though water is the world's greatest cocktail. People just don't understand it. It's 1 part hydrogen, 2 parts oxygen. So there you go. or 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, whatever. I ain't a scientist.
H2O. Mm-hmm.
Right? That means 2, right?
2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen.
There we go. 2 parts.
The wine might be starting to talk now. I don't know.
Possibly. But Mom, if you could please just give us a nice, gracious toast, and we'll raise our glass to you.
To all of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, the best is yet to come, and may God's best be upon us. Cheers.
Amen. Cheers.
Amen.
All right, Mom. So you've watched every episode of my show. My #1 supporter. Thank you very much. So
the least I can do. And thank you for having me. It is an honor.
Of course, Mom. It was an honor to ask you to have the platform, to have the space, to be available to show the world my beautiful mother. Mom's not on social media anywhere. You can't find her. Don't even try. This is her moment gracing the internet with her presence. You're welcome.
Thank you, son.
So if you would like to just take us out, and we'll conclude it with that.
Okay. I hope I get it right.
Okay.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Nice. That was perfect. That was so perfect. Thank you for listening to the Hot Plates and Grapes podcast, the podcast made for those on the grind in the hospitality industry. Be sure to follow us on Instagram for more content, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you're on the go, you can find us on platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and Anchor FM. Stay tuned for new episodes every other Tuesday at 7 p.m.